Have you ever watched someone pull away from you the moment you started caring about them, only to see them chase after someone who treats them poorly? This puzzling dance reveals one of the most complex patterns in human relationships, and understanding why avoidants chase people they don't want to need might just change how you see love forever. Picture this scenario. Someone seems completely uninterested in commitment, keeps their distance from anyone who shows genuine care, yet becomes absolutely captivated by people who are emotionally unavailable or even cruel to them. This isn't random behavior or simple self-sabotage. There's actually a fascinating psychological explanation rooted in attachment theory that makes perfect sense once you understand the deeper mechanics at play. Think about Chuck Bass from Gossip Girl and how he constantly pursued Blair Waldorf when she was with other people, but the moment she was available and vulnerable, he would often retreat. Or consider Joe Goldberg from the Netflix series You, who becomes obsessed with women who remain mysterious and just out of reach, but loses interest when they become too accessible or needy. These characters demonstrate a pattern that millions of people live out in real life every single day. The human brain has evolved some incredible survival mechanisms, but sometimes these same protective systems create the very problems they're trying to solve. When someone has an avoidant attachment style, their nervous system has been wired from early experiences to associate emotional closeness with danger. Deep down, they desperately want connection, but their subconscious mind treats it like a threat that must be managed or escaped from. But here's where it gets really interesting. The same person who runs from someone offering genuine love will often become completely fixated on someone who withholds affection, plays games, or remains emotionally distant. This isn't because they enjoy suffering or have low self-worth, though those factors can certainly play a role. Instead, this happens because chasing someone unavailable allows them to experience the thrill of connection without the terror of actually getting it. When you chase someone who doesn't want you back, you get to feel all the excitement and passion of being in love without any of the vulnerability that comes with being truly seen, known, and potentially rejected for who you really are. The emotional intensity feels like love, but it's actually a sophisticated defense mechanism that keeps the person safe from the deeper intimacy they both crave and fear. This creates what psychologists call a cognitive bias known as intermittent reinforcement, where unpredictable rewards create the strongest behavioral patterns. Just like a slot machine keeps people pulling the lever because they never know when the next payout will come, an emotionally unavailable person provides just enough attention and affection to keep someone hooked, but never enough to create the security that would allow true intimacy to develop. There's also something called the confirmation bias at work here, where people unconsciously seek out experiences that confirm their existing beliefs about relationships. If someone grew up learning that love is supposed to be difficult, painful, or earned through suffering, they'll be drawn to situations that validate that worldview, even when healthier options are available. You'll discover exactly how this pattern develops, why it feels so compelling to the people caught in it, and most importantly, what can be done to break free from these cycles and create the genuine connection that everyone deserves. If you want to better understand someone's attachment style, see the link in the description to one of the most popular books on attachment theory. Now let me tell you about Maria, a brilliant marketing executive who seemed to have everything figured out professionally, but found herself trapped in the most bewildering romantic pattern imaginable. Maria had been in therapy for 2 years, trying to understand why she kept falling for people who treated her poorly, while feeling suffocated by anyone who actually cared about her. Her therapist had helped her recognize that she had what's called an avoidant attachment style, developed during childhood with parents who were physically present but emotionally distant. Her mother was a perfectionist who showed love through criticism and high expectations, while her father worked constantly and rarely engaged in meaningful conversations about feelings or emotions. Maria learned early that the way to get attention was to achieve something impressive, and that emotional needs were inconvenient burdens that pushed people away. She became incredibly self-reliant and successful, but inside she carried a deep longing for connection, alongside an equally powerful fear that letting someone too close would lead to disappointment or abandonment. But here's where Maria's story takes an unexpected turn that reveals something profound about how the avoidant mind works. She met David at a conference, and everything about him should have been perfect for her. He was intelligent, successful, emotionally mature, and clearly interested in building something real with her. David was consistent with his communication, followed through on plans, and openly expressed his growing feelings for Maria. Yet instead of feeling excited about this healthy connection, Maria found herself feeling increasingly anxious and trapped. She started noticing things that annoyed her about David, like how he texted her good morning every day, or how he wanted to introduce her to his friends after just a few months of dating. These gestures of normal relationship progression felt overwhelming and claustrophobic to her nervous system. Then something happened that changed everything and revealed the true nature of her attachment pattern. At a work event, Maria met Alexandra, a charismatic consultant who was visiting from another city. Alexandra was charming, flirtatious, and completely unpredictable. Sometimes she would text Maria constantly for days, making plans and suggesting they spend time together. But then she would disappear for weeks without explanation. What happened next surprised everyone, including Maria herself. She found herself completely captivated by Alexandra in a way she had never experienced with David or anyone else who had treated her well. The uncertainty about where she stood with Alexandra created an intensity that felt like the deepest love she had ever known. Maria started canceling plans with David to be available in case Alexandra wanted to see her. She would spend hours analyzing Alexandra's texts, looking for clues about her feelings. When Alexandra was distant or dismissive, Maria felt desperate to win her approval. When Alexandra was affectionate and attentive, Maria felt a rush of euphoria that seemed to validate her entire existence. The irony was absolutely stunning. Here was Maria, someone who had spent her whole life avoiding emotional vulnerability, completely consumed with trying to get closer to someone who was doing to her exactly what she typically did to others. She was experiencing firsthand the painful longing that she had unknowingly put David and other partners through, but somehow when she was the one doing the chasing, it felt like the most important thing in the world. But the real revelation came when Alexandra finally made herself fully available and expressed genuine interest in exploring a committed relationship with Maria. Almost instantly, the spell was broken. The moment Alexandra became accessible and emotionally present, Maria's interest began to fade rapidly. The same person who had seemed irresistibly attractive when she was unavailable suddenly felt ordinary and uninteresting when she was offering the very connection Maria thought she wanted. This experience forced Maria to confront a painful truth about her attachment pattern. She wasn't actually attracted to people who were wrong for her because she had low self-esteem or enjoyed drama. Instead, her nervous system had learned to associate the feeling of chasing and uncertainty with love and passion, while interpreting emotional availability and security as boring or suffocating. The people she found most compelling were those who allowed her to experience the intensity of longing without the vulnerability of true intimacy. When someone remained just out of reach, she could feel all the excitement of being in love while staying safely protected from the deeper emotional exposure that comes with being truly known and accepted by another person. What made this pattern even more complex was that Maria wasn't consciously choosing to feel this way. Her brain had developed these preferences as a sophisticated survival strategy, designed to keep her safe from the kind of emotional pain she had experienced in childhood. But now this same protective mechanism was preventing her from experiencing the genuine connection she actually wanted in her adult relationships. Now that you understand how this pattern develops and why it feels so compelling, let's talk about what you can do if you recognize these tendencies in yourself or someone you care about. The first step is developing what psychologists call metacognitive awareness, which simply means becoming conscious of your own thought patterns and emotional reactions without immediately acting on them. When you notice yourself losing interest in someone who's treating you well, pause and ask yourself what's really happening in your body and mind. Are you feeling trapped or suffocated by their availability? Does their consistency feel boring compared to the excitement of uncertainty you've experienced with others? These feelings are important information about your nervous system, not necessarily accurate assessments of the person or relationship. The key is learning to distinguish between authentic compatibility issues and avoidant activation. Sometimes a relationship genuinely isn't right, and sometimes your attachment system is just responding to safety with suspicion because it's unfamiliar. Start paying attention to whether your lack of interest corresponds with increased emotional intimacy or availability from the other person. If you find yourself more attracted to people who are inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or even unkind, that's a clear signal that your attachment system needs attention and healing. This doesn't mean you should force yourself to stay in relationships that don't feel right, but it does mean you should be curious about why unavailable people feel more compelling than available ones. One of the most powerful tools for rewiring these patterns is learning to tolerate the discomfort of being truly seen and cared for by another person. When someone treats you well consistently, your nervous system might interpret this as danger because it's unfamiliar. Instead of running away or creating distance, practice staying present with the discomfort and reminding yourself that safety can feel strange when you're not used to it. This process requires what therapists call distress tolerance skills. When you feel that familiar urge to pull away from someone who's being kind to you, acknowledge the feeling without immediately acting on it. You might say to yourself something like, "This is my attachment system responding to safety with suspicion," but that doesn't mean this person is actually dangerous or that these feelings will last forever. It's also crucial to understand that healing avoidant attachment patterns isn't about forcing yourself to accept just anyone who shows interest in you. The goal is developing the capacity to remain emotionally present and available when you do find someone who's genuinely compatible with you. This means learning to differentiate between appropriate boundaries and defensive walls. Start practicing emotional vulnerability in small, manageable doses with people who have proven themselves trustworthy over time. This might mean sharing something slightly personal about your day, expressing appreciation for something kind they did, or admitting when you're feeling nervous or uncertain about something in the relationship. Notice how it feels in your body to be seen in these moments. Another important aspect of this work involves examining your relationship with your own needs and emotions. Many people with avoidant attachment learned early that their emotional needs were burdensome or unwelcome. As adults, they often pride themselves on being low maintenance and independent, but this can become a barrier to intimacy when taken to extremes. Practice identifying and expressing your needs before they become overwhelming or lead to resentment. This doesn't mean becoming demanding or needy, but rather learning to communicate your preferences, boundaries, and desires in clear, direct ways. When you can own your needs without shame, you're less likely to be threatened by someone else's willingness to meet them. It's also essential to develop what psychologists call self-compassion throughout this process. Many people judge themselves harshly for having these attachment patterns as if they chose to develop them consciously. Remember that these strategies developed as brilliant adaptations to challenging early experiences. They served an important protective function, and it's natural that changing them takes time and patience. Consider working with a therapist who understands attachment theory and can help you navigate this process with professional support. Healing attachment wounds often requires the experience of a consistently safe relationship, and therapy can provide a structured environment for practicing new ways of relating to others. Pay attention to how you respond when friends or family members try to support you emotionally. Do you feel grateful and connected, or do you feel uncomfortable and want to change the subject? Your reactions to support in non-romantic relationships can give you valuable information about your attachment patterns and help you practice staying present with care and concern from others. Finally, remember that developing secure attachment patterns is a gradual process, not a destination you arrive at suddenly. There will be times when your old patterns feel more comfortable or appealing than new ways of relating. This is completely normal and doesn't mean you're not making progress. The goal is increasing your awareness and expanding your options, not achieving perfection. Understanding why avoidants chase people they don't want to need opens up a window into one of the most fundamental human struggles, the tension between our deep desire for connection and our equally powerful need to feel safe and protected. This pattern isn't a character flaw or a sign of moral weakness, but rather a sophisticated psychological adaptation that made perfect sense given the circumstances in which it developed. The people who find themselves caught in these cycles are often incredibly intelligent, accomplished individuals who simply learned different rules about love and safety than those who developed more secure attachment styles. Their attraction to unavailable people isn't masochistic or self-destructive, but rather a way of experiencing the intensity and passion of romantic connection while maintaining the emotional distance their nervous system requires to feel safe. But here's what's truly hopeful about understanding this pattern. Once you recognize what's happening and why, you have the power to make different choices. You can learn to stay present when someone treats you with consistent kindness instead of interpreting their availability as a threat. You can practice tolerating the vulnerable feelings that come with being truly seen and cared for by another person. This doesn't mean settling for relationships that don't excite or inspire you, or forcing yourself to be with someone just because they're available and interested. Instead, it means developing the capacity to experience genuine excitement and attraction within the context of emotional safety and mutual respect. It means learning that real passion can coexist with security, and that the most profound intimacy comes from being known and loved for exactly who you are. The journey toward more secure attachment patterns requires courage, patience, and often professional support, but the rewards are immeasurable. When you can receive love without running away from it, when you can express your needs without shame, and when you can choose partners based on how they actually treat you rather than how they make you chase them, your entire experience of relationship changes. Think about Emily Cooper from Emily in Paris and her complicated dynamics with Gabriel versus Alfie. Her attraction to Gabriel intensified when he was unavailable or conflicted, but her relationship with Alfie showed glimpses of what becomes possible when someone can appreciate consistent care and emotional availability. The most beautiful relationships emerge when two people can show up fully for each other, without games, manipulation, or the artificial intensity created by uncertainty and distance. Take some time today to reflect honestly on your own relationship patterns. Notice whether you find yourself more drawn to people who keep you guessing than those who show up consistently. Pay attention to how it feels in your body when someone expresses genuine care and interest in you. These observations are the first step toward creating the kind of love that nourishes and sustains you rather than depleting your energy through constant uncertainty and chase. Your attachment style was formed in relationship, and it can be healed in relationship too. Whether that happens through therapy, friendship, or romantic partnership, the key is finding people who can remain patient and consistent while you learn new ways of being close to others. You deserve love that feels safe as well as exciting, and with awareness and commitment, that kind of relationship is absolutely possible for you.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to better understand avoidance, relationships, and psychological biases, then subscribe to our channel, because you deserve beautiful relationships.